Avery's fingers danced across the keyboard, her eyes fixed on the computer screen as she put the finishing touches on her latest article. The bustling newsroom of the Chicago Tribune hummed around her, but she remained focused, determined to meet her deadline. At 28, Avery had already made a name for herself as one of the paper's rising stars, known for her incisive reporting and ability to uncover hidden truths. As she hit send on her email to her editor, a shadow fell across her desk. Looking up, she found herself staring into the piercing blue eyes of Jacob Reeves, the Tribune's newly appointed investigative journalist. At 32, Jacob had built a reputation for breaking some of the biggest stories in New York before deciding to make the move to Chicago. "Burning the midnight oil again, Avery?" Jacob asked, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Avery leaned back in her chair, stretching her arms above her head. "You know me, always chasing the next big scoop. What's your excuse for being here so late?" Jacob's eyes sparkled with mischief. "I could say the same, but truth be told, I was hoping to catch you before you left. How about grabbing a drink? I've got a lead on a story that might interest you." Avery hesitated for a moment. She and Jacob had maintained a strictly professional relationship since he'd joined the paper 3 months ago, but she couldn't deny the spark of attraction she felt whenever he was near. Still, mixing business with pleasure was a risk she wasn't sure she was ready to take. "Come on," Jacob coaxed, sensing her hesitation. "One drink. If you're not intrigued by what I have to say, I'll never bother you after hours again." With a sigh of mock exasperation, Avery grabbed her coat. "Fine, but you're buying." The bar was dimly lit and cozy, a favourite haunt of journalists looking to unwind after a long day of chasing leads. As they settled into a quiet booth, Jacob leaned in close, his voice low and intense. "What do you know about Alderman Richard Holloway?" he asked. Avery raised an eyebrow. "Rising star in local politics, tipped to run for mayor next year. Clean record, family man. Why?" Jacob's eyes gleamed. "What if I told you that his squeaky clean image is just a facade? I've got a source who claims Holloway's been taking kickbacks from developers, greenlighting projects in exchange for hefty donations to his campaign fund." Avery felt a familiar thrill of excitement course through her veins. If this was true, it could be the biggest story to hit Chicago in years. But something nagged at her. "Why are you sharing this with me?" she asked, studying Jacob's face carefully. "This could make your career here. Why not keep it for yourself?" Jacob's expression softened, and for a moment Avery glimpsed a vulnerability beneath his confident exterior. "Because I've seen your work, Avery. You're not just after headlines. You care about the truth. And frankly, I could use a partner on this one, someone I can trust." As Jacob laid out the details of his investigation, Avery found herself drawn in not just by the story, but by the passion and integrity she saw in him. For the first time, she allowed herself to see Jacob as more than just a colleague. Over the next few weeks, Avery and Jacob worked tirelessly on the Holloway story, chasing leads, conducting interviews, and piecing together a complex web of corruption. Late nights at the office turned into shared takeout dinners and heated debates over their next move. With each passing day, the line between professional collaboration and personal connection began to blur. One evening, as they pored over financial records in Jacob's apartment, Avery looked up to find him watching her intently. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. Jacob reached out, gently tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "I was just thinking how beautiful you look when you're in full investigative mode." Avery's heart raced, but she forced herself to maintain her composure. "Jacob, we can't. The story is important, I know," he finished for her, "but so is this, Avery. What's happening between us? Can you honestly say you don't feel it too?" Before she could respond, Jacob's phone buzzed with an incoming text. His expression darkened as he read the message. "It's my source," he said grimly. "We've been made. Holloway knows we're on to him." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity as Avery and Jacob raced to gather the final pieces of evidence they needed before Holloway could cover his tracks. The pressure brought them closer together, their shared determination and trust in each other growing stronger with each passing hour. Finally, on a rainy Tuesday morning, They had everything they needed. As they stood in the editor's office, presenting their findings, Avery felt a surge of pride, not just in their work, but in the partnership she and Jacob had forged. The story broke the next day, sending shockwaves through Chicago's political landscape. Alderman Holloway resigned in disgrace, and federal investigators swooped in to uncover the full extent of the corruption. Avery and Jacob found themselves at the center of a media storm, hailed as the intrepid journalists who had exposed the truth. In the midst of the chaos, they stole a moment alone in the Tribune's archives, surrounded by the musty smell of old newspapers and the weight of history. "We did it," Avery said softly, still hardly able to believe it. Jacob took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "We did. But Avery, there's something else I need to say." She looked up at him, her heart pounding. "Jacob, I love you," he said simply. "I think I have from the moment I saw you hunched over your desk, chasing down a lead. You're brilliant, passionate, and infuriating in the best possible way. And I don't want to waste another moment pretending that what we have is just a professional partnership." Avery felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. All the reasons they shouldn't be together, office politics, the potential impact on their careers, seemed to fade away in the face of the undeniable connection between them. "I love you too," she whispered, and then Jacob was kissing her, his lips soft but insistent against hers. It was a kiss that spoke of long nights working side by side, of shared triumphs and setbacks, of a deep understanding that went beyond mere attraction. As they broke apart, breathless and giddy, Avery couldn't help but laugh. "You know this is going to complicate things at work, right?" Jacob grinned, pulling her close. "Probably, but I think we've proven we make a pretty good team. I'm willing to take on whatever challenges come our way if it means being with you." In the months that followed, Avery and Jacob navigated the tricky waters of being both colleagues and partners. There were raised eyebrows and whispered comments in the newsroom, but their professional integrity and the strength of their work spoke for itself. They continued to break important stories, their different strengths complementing each other perfectly. Their personal life blossomed alongside their professional success. Lazy Sunday mornings spent reading the paper in bed gave way to adventurous weekends exploring Chicago's hidden gems. They debated current events over dinner, challenged each other's assumptions, and pushed each other to be better journalists and better people. But their relationship wasn't without its challenges. The demands of their jobs often meant long hours apart, missed dates, and the constant struggle to maintain a work-life balance. There were arguments over story angles and ethical dilemmas, moments when the passion that made them such good reporters spilled over into heated disagreements. One particularly tense period came when Avery was offered a prestigious fellowship that would take her to Washington, D.C. for 6 months. The opportunity was too good to pass up, but the thought of being apart for so long weighed heavily on both of them. The night before Avery was set to leave, they sat on the roof of Jacob's apartment building, looking out over the glittering Chicago skyline. "I'm going to miss this," Avery said softly, leaning her head on Jacob's shoulder. "Miss you." Jacob wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "It's only 6 months, and think of all the corruption you'll be able to uncover in D.C. Avery laughed, but it was tinged with sadness. "You know, when we first started working together, I never imagined we'd end up here. I was so determined to keep things professional." "And look how well that turned out," Jacob teased, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Avery, listen to me. What we have, it's rare. The kind of connection that most people spend their whole lives looking for. 6 months apart isn't going to change that. If anything, I think it'll make us stronger." As Avery looked into Jacob's eyes, she saw the same determination and passion that had first drawn her to him. She knew he was right. Their love wasn't some fragile thing that would wither in the face of distance. It was built on a foundation of mutual respect, shared values, and a deep understanding of each other. "You're right," she said, reaching up to cup his face in her hands, "but that doesn't mean I won't count down the days until I'm back in Chicago with you." The 6 months in Washington were a whirlwind of new experiences and professional growth for Avery. She threw herself into her work, uncovering stories of national importance and honing her skills as an investigative journalist. But no matter how busy she was, she always made time for her nightly video calls with Jacob. Those calls became a lifeline, a chance to share the triumphs and frustrations of their days, to seek advice and offer support. They talked about everything from the latest political scandals to their favourite childhood memories, their connection deepening even as the miles stretched between them. When Avery finally returned to Chicago, she found Jacob waiting for her at the airport, a bouquet of her favourite flowers in hand. As she ran into his arms, she knew with absolute certainty that this was where she belonged. In the years that followed, Avery and Jacob's relationship continued to evolve and grow. They faced new challenges together, from covering a contentious mayoral election to navigating the rapidly changing landscape of digital journalism. Through it all, they remained each other's strongest supporters and fiercest critics, pushing each other to be the best versions of themselves. Their shared passion for uncovering the truth led them to collaborate on a book exposing systemic corruption in city governments across the country. The process was grueling, with long nights of research and heated debates over how to present their findings. But as they sat together at their first book signing, watching a line of readers stretch out the door, they knew that every argument and late night had been worth it. As their careers flourished, Avery and Jacob began to talk about the future. The idea of marriage, once a distant concept, became a real possibility. But true to form, their engagement was anything but traditional. It happened on a crisp autumn evening as they were chasing down a lead for their latest story. They had tracked their source to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place that would have sent chills down Avery's spine if Jacob hadn't been by her side. As they picked their way through the dimly lit building, flashlights in hand, Jacob suddenly stopped short. Avery nearly crashed into him, her heart racing with a mixture of adrenaline and confusion. "Jacob, what?" But her words died in her throat as Jacob dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. In the beam of their flashlights, the diamond ring sparkled like a star. "Avery," Jacob said, his voice thick with emotion. "From the moment we started working together, I knew you were someone special. You challenge me, inspire me, and make me want to be a better person every single day. We've faced down corrupt politicians and corporate criminals together, and I can't imagine facing the rest of my life with anyone else by my side. Will you marry me?" Tears streaming down her face, Avery pulled Jacob to his feet and into a passionate kiss. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. 1,000 times yes. Their wedding was a joyous celebration of their love and the unique partnership they had forged. Colleagues from the Tribune filled the pews, along with sources they had protected and people whose lives had been changed by their reporting. In their vows, they promised not just to love and cherish each other, but to always seek the truth together, to fight for justice, and to never stop challenging each other to grow. As they danced together at the reception, Avery looked up at Jacob, marvelling at the journey that had brought them to this moment. "You know," she said with a mischievous grin, "I think we might be the only couple whose how we met story involves corporate fraud and political corruption." Jacob laughed, spinning her in a graceful turn. "Would you have it any other way?" Avery shook her head, her eyes shining with love and happiness, not for all the Pulitzer Prizes in the world. As the years passed, Avery and Jacob's love continued to deepen and evolve. They faced new challenges together, from the birth of their first child to the increasing pressures of a changing media landscape. But through it all, they remained steadfast in their commitment to each other and to the principles that had brought them together. They became known not just as talented journalists, but as a power couple who used their platform to shine a light on injustice and give voice to the voiceless. Their home became a gathering place for young reporters seeking mentorship, for activists planning their next campaign, and for anyone who believed in the power of truth to change the world. And every night, as they lay in bed together, Avery would look at Jacob and feel the same thrill she had experienced that first night in the bar, when he had shared his big story with her. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their love a beacon of hope in an often dark world. For Avery and Jacob, love wasn't just about romance or passion. It was about partnership, shared purpose, and the unwavering belief that together they could make a difference. And in that, they had found a love story unlike any other.